Thank you for checking out episode 2 of the Free Time Mastermind podcast. Our guest today is Dave Deidren, who's the founder of ProVelop, a digital creative agency. Whether you want to boost the image of your business or boost the business itself through marketing, Dave's ProVelop is a one-stop shop for those solutions. But the big question of the day is, can you grow your company and be able to spend time away from it at the same time? Can you grow your company and work remotely and still have excellent results? Dave may have cracked the code to that. We try to get him to share some of his secrets over the course of the next hour. And we thank you for tuning in. And without further ado, here's Dave. Your creative agency, ProVelop. Tell us what skill set inside of that creative agency you started first. In other words, the very first skill set inside of that you began with.
So it all started with website development, actually. I did website development school, and then I worked for different agencies, and then I just started that as my main offer, basically. So it all started with website development, yeah.
So you went to school and then immediately started working. And was this a paid school where you had to compensate for the instruction?
Yeah. It was literally like a high school, like uni type stuff.
That's fantastic. I don't. We might have that over here, but I think because of my age, I'm a little out of touch with what high school students are doing. But no, I thought that was because really, honestly, I thought the typical answer is, well, I was watching some YouTube videos or a friend. But that's amazing. That's a much more formalized introduction. So, how soon after the instruction did you go from instruction and then doing some experimentation with yourself and then working? Or did you go straight from the academics into occupation?
So I did like 3 years of school, if I remember correctly. And I always needed to teach the teachers how to code and how to code specific things because I was like a brand new course. So even the teachers didn't quite know how to code yet. And I was like, that's where my interest came from. And then we needed to do internships. So I started to do internships at website development agencies. And I just immediately fell in love with the fact of developing websites and all that stuff. And then after that education, I went to university for that, actual software engineering. And then I basically just stopped in my second year. I was already working 2 years for another agency at that point, like full time-ish. So after school, I would drive to the office and actually do development and then go home to eat and then school, work, eat, and that's it. And then at some point, I was handling the biggest clients of the Netherlands. And even internationally. And I was like, why can I not just do this for myself? If I'm handling these clients, I can do this for myself as well. So that's where it basically all started from. Yeah.
That's incredible. Thanks for piecing that in because I had no idea. We knew each other before this, but I had no idea. That was fantastic. So help me understand the transition because I actually dropped out of what did they call it when anyway, I went to college for IT and I dropped out of that program and I actually went into the business management because the IT program of the university I went to it's not Harvard, but it's notoriously brutal. It's known to be rough because they produce very good IT people. And I needed a lot of help. And the professors just, they're designed in that program not to help you. They want people to quit.
Oh yeah.
So I obliged them, but that's okay. I mean, it led into the things that I wanted to do, which goes back to my question for you. So the coding is I would believe is very different from what you're doing in the design agency. You're not writing. So tell me about the transition between the more let me think how to say this, the more left-brained activity of programming versus the more right-brained activity of being creative. So when did that transition begin to happen?
Yeah, first of all, that wasn't an easy transition at all because I normally got just build out this backend system and you're done. And then all of a sudden, it started at my internship. They were like, hey, we need this website done for a client. We know you normally do backend systems, but we want you to start playing with this as well. And then my brain immediately went, well, oh, this is way less complicated than developing a whole backend system. And it's also the dopamine hits you get from it. Because if you're building a backend system, you can be stuck at one specific function for months on end, just for one simple function. And with a website, you can blast out like in a month, maybe 10 of them. And like the dopamine hits are like, I think my brain was like, oh, this is way more enjoyable. I'm getting way more hits out of this.
That's
And just the
good.
process, the creative process as well. It's like completely different in that regard as well.
And for the people, and of course, I know what you mean, but for the people out there that aren't sure, help us understand what's the difference between front end and back end.
Oh yeah. Backend systems is basically the brain of everything. So it handles basically everything. And the front end is just what you see. So the website, the front end, just the text, the images, all the stuff you see.
So like an app on my phone, the part that I see that I interact with, that would be the front end. But
Correct.
let's say if it was an app that integrates a map with weather, the back end is accessing the weather data, the
Hmm.
stuff that you don't see. So behind the curtain is the back end,
Yeah.
the things happening that you're
Yeah.
not seeing. So when your
Correct.
computer's locking up or the app is waiting and showing the clock, that's the back end doing the work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good. I was trying to think of a good way to explain it, and I think a lot of people
Yeah.
understand that, but just in case. Uh, Also, too, we had talked about before. You had done some work in the United States.
Correct.
Were you recruited from there, and then give us just a little bit about that, because then we'll because we will eventually get into the traveling,
Yeah.
always the interesting part of working. But can you give us a little bit of information about how you were contacted for that, how that started, and what state you went to and where you worked?
So that's a very interesting story. So I started off with a mentor basically from the United States, and he mentored me with my business, like coaching, consulting, and all that type of stuff. But slowly but surely, that transitioned into me consulting them on their website development because my skills are more there, like in the website development. So they were like, "Hey, can you not just fly out to the United States and stay here for 3 months and consult on us on this?" So I said, sure, I'm up for any journey. Like I just want to experience as much as I can. So I was like, why not? So I just booked the plane ticket, grabbed an Airbnb for 3 months, and I just went to Dallas, Texas, and just stayed there for 3 months consulting them. And that's basically how it started.
When you
Hmm.
decided to start your own business, and I think it was that experience in the U.S. where, and this happens a lot with entrepreneurs, whether somebody's at a nightclub even, and they see a singer on the stage, and before that, this customer sitting at the bar sings in their shower, and maybe they sing karaoke, but one day they see somebody on stage and they think, I can do that. And that's the
Yeah.
beginning of so many business. You'd think,
Oh yeah.
no, this doesn't look that hard, or I have that skill set. So it sounds like you had that same aha moment, both before in coding, you were dealing with people that you thought, I could kind of move into what they're doing. And same exact thing in Dallas. You looked around
Yeah.
and with their agency and thought, I could do that. And I don't want to make this a big part of what I say, but a lot of people know I was involved in another mastermind group before, who I think they're wonderful people. But the reason why I started one is because there were things I wish it had, and I wasn't at a level where I could make that type of suggestion with that group. So I just said, well, let me just start one. So I'm not really a
Yeah.
competitor. I believe they're in a completely different category, but I had the same experience. And a lot of people, when I worked with artists, people would come to art shows and they would look at other people's art and they think, I kind of paint at home and I think I'm on the level of this person. Let me try to. So that's great. Everybody has these aha moments where they realize,
Sure.
I can probably do this. So when you made that transition, because the Dallas company obviously had their own clients, maybe you had your own clients before in the
Yeah.
Netherlands. When you launched, how did because that's time, that's money. Talk to us about what the logistics were behind that launch. You went back home, you did. So kind of walk us through that, starting that business, so people wanting to do something similar to that can get an idea of what the steps are that are involved.
Oh yeah, of course. So at that time, I was already running the business 3 years. So I
Oh,
just grabbed that information and used it. But I know the day that I started, I didn't know anything. I started and I just was like, oh, I just start a company and the clients will come, like that nonchalant, like, oh, I start and it will run. I didn't even know what sales was at that time. I didn't even know the whole concept of selling and sales or whatever, until I was doing some research and I found out like, oh, I actually have to go to people and I actually have to talk to people. So that's basically how the ball started rolling. And then when I went to Dallas, I really started to see how they do it on a bigger level, like actually multi-millions of dollars that go in there. I was like, oh, this is a whole completely different ball game that's being played over here. So I just looked and I just started like looking at how do they operate, how do they do their meetings, how they do their client acquisition, how does their web design process look like, their customer retention process. So I just started to look at everything
Okay.
and just started grabbing inspiration, started doing more research and all that stuff.
So even inside of that structure in Dallas, that was a level of mentorship too, because you were in a learning environment because all
Oh
of
yeah.
those things were new. And that's funny because it's very common for, I would say, even on both ends of the spectrum. So when I work with artists, um, I hate to make generalizations, but the reason why they worked with me is because they didn't want to deal with the money, they didn't want to deal with the marketing. They really disliked anything to do with the business. They wanted to
Mhm.
paint, they wanted to do photography, they wanted to do sculpture, which, very envious of that talent
Oh
that
yeah.
to be able to just come up with something and chip out a rock, and it blows me away. But they did not want to deal with marketing. And I did. I found that exciting. I wish I could do
Hmm.
sculpture too, but the business part was very exciting. But also on the other end, when you go to the furthest edges of the technical specialties, so these high level programming and cybersecurity, those people don't tend to be business people either. So
No.
both extreme left brain, extreme right brain, but and they typically partner up with somebody else that has that skill set. But what you did is, it sounds like you said, I need to build both skill sets. Or do you have somebody that does more of your sales, like a kind
No,
of,
not at all.
okay,
I
wow,
actually do everything myself. And every time I walked into a room, I remember the first years, everyone would be like, you don't come off as a programmer, you come off as a business guy. And I was like, oh, I do?
oh, I like that.
I know. So I was literally a combination of two. I had the tech side, I know technology, and I knew the business side. So like that combination was like killer. That was like the best that could ever happen to me, actually.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And a lot of that stuff goes on to here on the West Coast, where people like you get in, do a pitch, angel investment, you walk out with
Hmm.
$15 million, and then you go, become a billionaire off of an iPhone app. It's
Yeah.
amazing. What was the scariest part about? So you went into your business, in other words, kind of started on your own after you already had clients when you left
Yeah.
the company and came back home. What was the scariest part of that transition from the United States back home, and then restarting as your own? Or and plus two, tell me, when was it called ProVelop? When did you come up with that, and where did that come
From the
from?
beginning, actually. It
Okay.
actually came from the beginning. I always wanted to start a company with two other guys, actually. And we combined the names together, and that was Develop, my first name and some last names. And then I was like, but I want to really start a business, and these two guys didn't. So I was like, okay, then I have to do it by myself then. So I went like, okay, Develop, professional development. So I just grabbed professional and development and mixed it together. I was like, Develop, absolutely perfect.
When you started growing and it started getting serious, where you're like, I don't have to worry. And I don't know if you had a full-time job before, and at some point you left it to do this full time. So a lot of people are working, doing their dream part time and then working full time to pay the bills. But when things started to get really serious, what kind of advertising, marketing, and PR did you start doing? And then I have some follow-up questions on that.
Of course, of course. So I made the dumb mistake. I made the mistake, or not the dumb mistake, I made the ballsy move. I was like, if I do this, I better go all in. And I just immediately started the business. And then basically my job found out, and they were like, listen, you're kind of turning into a competitor right now. So you either need to stop or you need to go with us. And even though I didn't have any questions, like clients, it already feels like a little baby. So I was like, yeah, I cannot drop it now. So I went home to my parents. I was like, listen, I got to stop this job and I really have to go all in while still being at school. And it took me literally, I think, 6 months to make my first money from the business. And the way that I did that was posting on Instagram, showing my face, talking to as many people as I could that I knew, like, hey, I do this now. So if you know someone, like, let them come to me. Do crazy cheap deals, like 250 for a whole website, €250. emailing, Instagram DMs, Facebook DMs. I did everything. I was hustling. I was just going all out to get my name out there. I even did some free work. I did free work. I was reaching out to the biggest YouTubers of the country, and I actually worked with the biggest influencers of the Netherlands, like talking YouTubers with over 1 million of subscribers that like I literally drove to while I didn't make any money. All my change, like all my savings were done. I already spent it all to survive the 6 months that I had. And I just spent that last money on gas. I remember it really well, to go to a well-known influencer to do their website for free. And I got back home, and 2 weeks later, I finally got a paying client in.
I love it. I had, another thing. I had no. That's awesome. That's the kind. That's the kind of stuff
Yeah.
people love to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a very similar phrase over there. But we talk a lot about, like, when the Vikings would do a raid, they would come up, and then to make sure that the
Yeah.
other soldiers wouldn't leave, they would burn their ships. And
Exactly.
that's, there's a time to burn your ships, but
Yeah.
what's interesting to point out in that, and I do sometimes encourage people to quit their job, but you also had the support of your family, which is incredible.
Correct.
Not everybody has
Yeah.
that. So if somebody's in a situation where they don't have the support of the family, and they don't have something to fall back on, they might only want to burn a couple of their ships,
Sure.
not
Sure.
all
Not
of them.
all of them.
But but
No.
but but I think, obviously, the level of boldness of the move that you made, it paid off. And a lot of
Oh
people,
yeah.
I know people with an unbelievable amount of skill, from everything from musicians to, you name it, to technicians, and they're deathly afraid to be aggressive, put themselves out there, even to post on social media, just to write something
Oh
in
yeah.
a forum sometimes is
Hmm.
very intimidating for people who, if you knew them, you'd want to do business with them, because they're
Yeah.
they're the masters of their craft. And I would say, and of course, you also, obviously, you have the technical expertise to go with it, so you have the chops to
Yeah.
for what you're selling, which is fantastic. But even, and as well as I do, even people that don't have the chops, if they're beating the streets and they're aggressive, they're going to win.
Oh yeah.
Um,
One
I
hundred
do,
percent.
and I think I mentioned this before. I do a lot of business on Upwork, and
Hmm.
sometimes after doing an interview with somebody, and I realize it's not going to be a fit for the project, there are certain people from certain areas of the world. They are incredibly aggressive. Like, they want
Yeah.
that business, and it's, to an American, it's a little scary, because it's an uncommon way of doing business. But I admire the
Hmm.
spirit, and
Yeah.
I've taken a chance with some people that didn't have the skill set, but I felt like, I could work with them very easy. So those are the two requirements. If I'm trying to decide to work with somebody, one, is it going to be pleasant to work with them? And two, can they
Yeah.
serve the project that I'm trying to do? So sometimes I'm able to forgive one on one category to deal with the other. But again, those ambitious people, and what you did, and putting yourself out there and just go, go, go. But it took 6 months. So in
Hmm.
advertising, we tell people, you'll run a campaign sometimes for a long time before you get that first
Yeah.
one. And then
Oh
once
yeah.
people get used to seeing it, you could go to the Kalahari Desert, and I don't have any Coca-Cola cans around here, but you could hold it up, and they know, there are Bushmen that know what
Hmm.
Coca-Cola is, and that's
Yeah.
that consistent message. But it goes to show, from 6 months of effort to get client one, and then once you got from that point, how quick did it grow from that? Did you
Very
start to get
quick.
very quick, and mostly
Very quick.
organic, word of mouth, or
Yeah.
so you
The
didn't
first
have to do a
ones.
big ad spend? Sorry, go ahead.
No, the first ones came actually from Facebook messaging. So once I had the first free client that I did for free, I was like, okay, now I have some work that I can show. Now I could go to more local clients and talk to them. So I started to go Facebook to restaurants primarily, and I started talking to them. And then I tried to reach out to the biggest ones, or the most well-known ones. Actually, the local well-known ones. So a lot of local people know them. And I was like, look, we'll do this for 750 euros. But just quick, done, blah, blah, blah. And then I got like 5 in the next month. And then I was like, oh, this is working. And then it's just started. I got work, I got referrals, I got all that stuff. And a lot of my business comes from referral business. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, as you grow, let's say if if the agency was twice as big as it is right now, and you have and it's already growing, which is fantastic. But picture in your
Yeah.
mind if it's twice as big, would there be a certain point of growth just to be careful and to sustain it that you would consider running ads
Oh yeah, we're
okay.
already getting there. Yeah,
Oh, good.
we
Okay,
already have
great.
everything set up. It's just like we're waiting till like there's like enough revenue that we can actually go really really deep in that. Because I'm also a big I believe in ads. It's like one of the best ways to get organic clients in. And it's like the client comes to you and you're not going to the client actually. So it's my opinion as well. It's like one of the best ways to get like clients
You you led in perfectly to what I had next.
now.
When working with people, I want to do a two-part question. So one,
Mhm.
a lesson that I really had to learn working with people, whether I'm working for them or they're working for me. I was very poor at setting expectations, and I think almost everybody else is very poor at setting expectations.
Oh,
I learned that, and I know I talk about Upwork every day, but it's a wonderful place to get certain
yeah,
talent. And I had to get really good at communicating what I wanted, what the standards were, what the
yeah,
deliverables were. And tell me a little bit about your process when you work with somebody to make sure, because obviously if expectations aren't managed on both sides, that's where you get in conflict with either
yeah,
your employer or your client. So tell me a little bit about what process you use to make sure everybody is on the same
yeah.
sheet of music.
So we made that mistake. Like I made that mistake so often. I was like, I just want what I find pretty, and I don't care what the client thinks. I want to be proud of my work, and like I know best. Which obviously is a terrible mindset to have. So at some
That's
point,
funny.
what we do now is like we start with an onboarding call, and we had that with you as well. We started with an onboarding call, and we send out a document, and we like, okay, send us inspiration, send us as much as you want, and if we actually build out a like multi-page website, we start wireframing that. So we make a document, we collect mood boarding, so we collect examples from that specific niche or like target audience or whatever, and we put that all in a mood board in a file, and we share that with the client. And then we're like, okay, what do you like more? And then we go back and forth. Then we basically make a sketch. So that's called a wireframe and website design terms, but it's a sketch. And it's basically just a pale, like a blank layout of like, okay, where are the elements going to be on the website? Then we go back to the client again and we're like, okay, approve this. Do you want changes? Yes or no? Once that's approved, we actually do the website design itself. So then we do the images, the text, the fonts, the colors, we add everything in there. And then we set that back for approval. And once that's approved, we actually start with the website development so that the client exactly knows what he'll be getting and no questions. Like he doesn't have to wonder, like, oh, what's happening with my website? Well, how is it going to look like? I know nothing. And that's how we try to prevent that from happening. Obviously, while developing, the client sometimes has something like, oh, I actually want this different, which is fine. But at least he has some expectations of how the website is going to look like.
Now that your business has grown to a point where you're adding people, you're looking to add more people, you're looking at ad
Yeah.
campaigns. You've talked about doing a little bit of travel. Tell us how that
Mm-hmm.
works. So, a lot of people want to be a digital nomad. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously, your business, which can be, I presume, run from a laptop.
Yeah.
Tell us
100%.
about the trusting your staff to do things while you're on the road, and give us the
Oh,
nuts
yeah.
and bolts of that, because that's very, very interesting, because we'd all love to travel.
So I'm a big believer in training your staff. So like I create documents for everything, for every process that we have. So I literally have a process for client acquisition. And not just one, I have how to find leads, how to target them, how to talk to them, how to email them. And we have documents where they can track the leads, where they can keep up how many emails they send, how many follow-ups. So I'm a big, big believer in like documenting every step and also hopping on calls with your staff to train them on specific tasks that they need to like accomplish.
That is fantastic. Now, in lieu of the actual travel itself, is it a phone, a webcam, and a laptop, or is it a phone and a laptop? And I would assume you're doing some due diligence about where you're going to stay and make sure that you have access to
Yeah.
the internet. And since you're in Europe, I don't know if you're going to be relying on the internet of an Airbnb, or do you carry a device that. So give me the technicals of being a digital nomad.
Yeah, so I like to go to either Airbnbs or hotels that have really good Wi-Fi. I like to like view that before I go. And if they don't, I know that a lot of actually restaurants have good Wi-Fi as well. And then if that last case, like last scenario, I have my phone with unlimited data, I just hook that up to my laptop as a hotspot, and that's always fast enough. So I always have like multiple ways to do that. And I think you can also buy like small Wi-Fi adapters that you just plug them into a wall, and they work perfectly as well. So there's multiple things that I keep in mind with that. Yeah.
That's good, and a lot less trouble in Europe than say
Yeah.
if you were in the United States and you went to Mexico or Central
Hmm.
America or South America. Not that there aren't mountains in Europe, there certainly are, but the terrain as you go south of the United States gets very wild, and there are a lot of areas that are very pastoral. There's not much infrastructure as far as electronics, so that's a big
Sure.
concern. Starlink is
Yeah.
really starting to change that for digital nomads in the United States. I have it here. I'm in a rural
Hmm.
area of Florida, and there is no all of the normal internet options here are very poor. I couldn't probably do
Oh,
this
really?
call anything other than Starlink is the one.
Wow.
And it technically wasn't available in this area, I think, until about a year ago. So prior
Oh,
to
wow.
that, everybody you could watch, uh, the TV, watch some cable TV, and if we had a storm, it would just go out.
Wow.
So yeah, and even the Starlink, even as good as it is, and it's Starlink is expensive, but I
Yeah.
am happy with the service. But if we get severe weather, it would interrupt a call like this. I could
Oh, wow.
continue with the internet, but that's amazing. Starlink is again in the Kalahari Desert in the middle of nowhere. As long as you have satellites flying over, you get a connection.
True.
That's incredible.
That's
So
fantastic. Yeah.
can you share with us any of the destinations you're going to check out while you're working over the course? So in 2024,
Ooh.
what spots are on your list?
There are so many. There are so many. So there's Dubai on the list, and not for the lifestyle. It's because my connections are there. I have a lot of connections there. So it's not for me the flashy lifestyle that attracts me. It's for me pure the people that I know there. Then probably also Turkey because my girlfriend originates from there. So I want to like get as much from the whole culture as well. Italy is also on my list. I love Greek mythology, all that stuff. So I want to also like view art. I want to view everything, and then obviously Greece is also on that list. Um, and there's like plenty to come. There's like plenty. Thailand is probably on the list. All these countries.
Right, right. And since you said Thailand, I'll throw this in. So I had it on the list. I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it up. You've got some experience as a fighter. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you could go there and mix it up with them a little bit and get some, because a lot of people
True.
go there to train. People think
Yeah.
Thailand is this place where just really crazy things happen, but there is world class Thai boxing training
Hmm.
over there. And not to go on a tangent, but people can get I think if you go over there as a tourist, you can stay under certain agreements
Oh
30 days, but
yeah.
you can get a Thai boxing visa and stay there for a year and
True. Yeah.
get some great training. Have you thought about anything like that? Getting some skill
I
set
actually
over there.
did.
That's fine.
Yeah, I actually know some people from Thailand, and they also do Muay Thai. And I was like, they always invite me to do some Muay Thai camp with them together or something because they know I did MMA back in the past, so they know I did a lot of fighting. And I always get like invited and like a bit like bullied and like, come on, Dave, come, like you're such a good fighter, show it them, and So yeah, it's been on my mind, but I don't know for sure yet.
That okay, good, good. I understand. Well, you can check it out. That was my zinger question. I had that in here. I thought if we get anywhere near that subject, I'm going to jump on it. But I was going to let you. I was going to let you lead it in. I didn't want to sideswipe you on that. If somebody comes to you and obviously, so I didn't invent. I came up with the word, but I didn't invent this concept. When I talk to people, I try to even if I can't help them, I'm trying to figure out if they're in one of four categories, and I call it the 4 10s. Everybody either needs four more customers, leads. Let me call them leads. So they already know how to close leads, but they just need more of them.
Yeah.
The second category, number two, would be they need more closes. So they're getting enough leads, but they're not getting the contract signed, which is a different, completely different problem.
Correct. Oh yeah.
Number three, and this happens a little bit later in the business. People might have enough leads, they might have an adequate number of closes, but they want to start working with more high ticket clients. So instead of the $500, or let's be honest, $1,500 website design, you want the $5,000 client, the $15,000. So the third of the four tens would be the higher ticket clients. And sometimes you can run into that very early in the business. Sometimes it takes years
Oh
to
yeah.
get to the point where that's even a concern. And it's unfortunate. A lot of people just get caught up in, I just need more customers. And it's a beautiful thing to transition to have customers. And now you want to start getting more selective about your projects, playing to your strengths, doing. So sometimes doing what's profitable is one thing, and doing what's joyful is another. Same thing with the painters.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
know
yeah.
a person that's stuck painting dogs because people love their painted dogs, but they have so much more to offer, and their other stuff is really great, but the general public loves their dogs. So they get to mix it up. But when people are at that stage, I think I'm running into more people there. And I'm going to guess, because I don't know this for sure, I would assume that's kind of where you are. You're now looking for those
Yeah.
more high ticket clients. Okay. And then the
Correct.
last,
Yeah.
and you may not be at this phase, and those four steps aren't necessarily sequential. They can happen at any phase of the
Oh
business.
yeah.
And this fourth step is really what our mastermind group is all about. The fourth of the four tens is somebody could use 10 more hours a week. And so our group talks a lot about outsourcing, about using virtual assistants, about something that you're clearly good at is creating processes. Because if you've got a process, if you have an SOP, if you have guides, if you have uh, videos that for onboarding for both new hires and clients, where normally the onboarding would be you talking for 30 minutes. Now it's somebody, if it's appropriate for this, you can send them a 30-minute video instead. If somebody comes to you um, with a very limited budget. And that's why I brought up the what made me think about the 410s. But if you get somebody and they're maybe a little bit smaller than the client you would normally take on, but that happens sometimes. Maybe you like their
Oh yeah.
business. Sometimes you're excited about what they're doing, and they're like, or they got a great person. I want to work with this person. So I like people that I like. Whenever possible, I try to work with people that I know I'm going to have a positive experience with, and that I can make an impact. But if somebody's very limited in their budget, and this is a very generalistic question, and I may have to follow up with some stuff on this, but if they could spend money on one thing with your agency, what would that one thing be? And I won't go into the money, but let's just say they're very limited. They're in that thing where they need more leads. They're just starting out. They're like, I've been working from home on this thing, and I have a small network of people that send me business, but they're trying to get to the next level. What's the one thing you would say? Pay me to do this, and we can get you out there a little better.
It really depends. There's two answers to the question. I would be website or ads. It really depends if they already have a good website in place, because obviously if you run ads, you're going to send traffic to your website. So it really depends. If they have a good website, I would be like, stop it all, like put it all in ads. But if the website is not optimized yet, I would start with that and optimize the SEO part, so that in the back end, the SEO, like the Google results, are already ranking your website higher for specific search results, and just focus on that. So it really depends. Is there a good website in place? Yes or no?
With the SEO, and for people that don't know, search engine optimization,
Yeah.
very, very strong. It's exactly what you said. Of course, it's the two-part strategy, SEO and ads. Those are the two tent poles that hold up
Oh yeah.
driving clients. So in SEO, and I'm trying not to give you too many specifics, because people are going to be listening to this from many, many different business types. But in
Oh yeah.
SEO, what do you think the best money is spent on SEO? So, and I'll give you some constraints to make this easier. Is it loading keywords on the website so that the web crawlers that determine who's higher in the results, or or doing blogs and having links back to your page. And again, you could tell from my hesitation, I'm not an expert on that. But if you can, just give
You're
me some of
correct.
the elements of very strong SEO.
Yeah, I would do blogs, but like some of the times that can be very spammy. Then I would do keywords. But the most important part is actually the functionality of the website, which most people overlook. So the loading speed, the readability on mobile, the readability of font sizes, alt tags on images, for example, the descriptions of images also help with SEO. Just the general text on the website also helps with SEO. And what I found out, most of the times people like create a website and don't update it anymore. Like they just keep the text as it is. They never update it. Like it's done, they're done, they leave it. But if you update your website, like it can be an hour a week, just some content, some change the wording around, just keep the general keywords that you want to target in there, but just change like small colors, like change the loading speed, images, specific areas, call to actions, and that already works as well.
Excellent. And the friction of the experience, right? If somebody goes on,
Yeah.
and I try to stay positive, but I've interacted with some real heavy hitters recently, marketing people. I talked to a gentleman the other day. I hit him up on his Facebook, on his wall. He had I think he took a YouTube video and put it on Facebook, and it was really good. And I asked him a question about potentially doing some work with him, hiring him. And he said, "Oh, sure, yeah, yeah, yeah." And he directed me to a contact page, which is just name, email address, phone number, and then what are you asking about? And I'm very specific. So I went in and I told what I'm looking for, what I need, and I sat there and really thought, because I didn't want to overwhelm him with 20 paragraphs, and I got it down to two really good condensed paragraphs, and I was proud. I said he's going to know exactly what. And he spent all this money for this website. He's constantly on, so he's exerting a lot of effort to grab people like me. I click send, and the next day I get a text on the phone that says, "Hey, Robert, I saw you reached out to me. What can I do for you?"
Oh no.
And the air just went out, and I know that's not a huge deal, but when somebody is putting themselves out there as an expert,
Yeah.
in an area where you definitely need to understand that part. Now, if it was a florist, a flower shop, and I was getting an arrangement for a wedding, that no send me, let's start the whole process over again. That's okay. But
Exactly.
when you're selling, this type of like podcast or marketing or YouTube, and you throw that kind of friction in again, where I got to tell the whole story. It's like going to the doctor, right? You go in, like,
Yeah.
if hopefully nobody has an emergency, but if you go into the emergency room, you have to tell that story to 5 people. Like, well, what happened? You talk to the intake
Yeah.
person, then you talk to the nurse, then you talk to and man, maybe I just have a low tolerance for business friction. But if I'm dealing with a business professional that's going to help me grow my business, and they
Oh
don't
yeah.
understand friction on theirs, oh man, I did not reply to that
Oh
guy, by
yeah.
the way. I'm still
Of
mulling
course not.
over whether
Of course not.
whether I want to give them money. I do think they know what they're doing, but that was a belly flop. That was a fail.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I feel bad for them because they spend so much time. I see them very active on social media. Um,
Yeah.
and I talk about this a lot, and I'm trying to get it into some type of written form too, that if you think about what a doctor goes through to become a doctor, so it's let's just make it easy, because it's different in different places. 12 years of college, right? Or 12 years of education. You have to do your practicals. You jump through all these hoops, and then it still takes a few years for you to potentially open up your own clinic. And then the clinic, I was looking at numbers. I think it's 500,000, even like to open a dental clinic. Sometimes you're
Yeah.
looking
It's a
at a
lot.
500,000 to launch. It's an unbelievable. You do all of that school, spend all that money, you pass, you're successful. You go into debt up to right about here to open the clinic, and then you put a person at the front desk and answering the phone that has no business
No idea.
interacting with other human beings.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that. And I've had that happen at places that charge a lot of money for their service. But unfortunately, in dental school and medical school, they don't talk a whole lot about how to run your business.
No,
So
right.
specialists don't get that training, and it's heartbreaking to know how much effort they've spent, and then the face of their company and the voice of their company is somebody that really should be, you know, in a not, I'm trying to be polite, in a not customer facing position, and some of that can't be taught. Um,
No,
I don't think charisma can be grown or
no,
cultivated.
definitely not. No.
And that's okay. We don't all, you know, like you being the best of both worlds, you having those strong design instincts and also programming and charisma and being able to close a client and developing that relationship. That's a very unique skill set that you have.
I got lucky. I got very lucky.
But other people should just maybe play to their, you know, they can work on their
Oh
weaknesses a
yeah.
little bit, but I will always say play to your strengths. You're going to do much
Oh yeah.
better. Now, do
Oh
you
yeah.
see yourself 2 years from now? Do you see yourself more as sitting at the keyboard and still doing uh, the sales funnel and the design, or do you see yourself more in a CEO position where you're a relationship manager and your
Yeah,
team is
definitely
handling
CEO.
all? Okay, so you
Yeah,
won't
definitely.
you know you won't be as hands on. Um,
No, correct.
okay,
I'll still be like I'll try to be the main contact person of every client that we have. Obviously, will be having. Um, but I just want to like be the one that is operating, the whole structure and not in the structure. I want to work on it and not in it. So at some point, I want to transition to that full CEO
that's
title.
great. Well, you have such a robust understanding, uh, way more than people. Some people I know that have 10 years on you. So
Thank you.
where are you getting that from? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Do you read a lot of books? So give
No,
us kind of where's all this knowledge that you have coming from? Because either you're very well self-educated or you just have phenomenal instincts about how to do this.
a lot of YouTube. A lot of YouTube and reading. And then at some point I started like talking to other entrepreneurs. And now day to day I have like entrepreneurs that make 500,000 a month that I talk to on a daily basis. Yeah, that's like you can go to them, you can learn, you can watch them. But the beginning, like everything comes from YouTube. Yeah, everything.
So I wanted to close this out and again, thank you so much for
No, I appreciate
coming
you.
in. It's as good as I had anticipated it would be, and you floored me with some stuff that I didn't see coming, and very interesting aspects of your story, and I hope that you integrate some of those interesting aspects of your story into your media, because what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
learning now is it's very tough for us to be vulnerable. And,
Yeah.
and I think especially the pressure for us men to be, we have to be a certain way and we have to exude a certain thing. But in media, whether it's a compelling story, an audiobook, or a film, because we all are artists in certain ways. And if we're
Oh
if
yeah.
we're willing to be somewhat vulnerable about our story, if people are looking at this on YouTube, they're going to connect with the mistakes we made, the really
Hmm.
happy moments and all that. So, and that's a struggle for me too. I really want this podcast to be popular, but I know I have to open up because that's
Oh
what
yeah.
people are interested in. They want the deets, they want the details, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah.
Let me see. What's the best way for people to reach? Yeah, okay. No, this is the most important of all. So if people want to do business with you and they want to do business with ProVelop, what's your
Mhm.
preferred method of contact? And we'll have it in the description. We'll put it on the screen. Give us two things: the preferred
Mhm.
methods of contact, and of course you are in Europe, so it's the phone number is going to be a little different if you do give a
Yeah.
phone number. They'll need to put in the
Yeah.
country code. Your email, anything else you feel comfortable with, your website, and
Mhm.
tell us what services you're most excited. In other words, if you have an opportunity to talk to your ideal client, let's hear exactly what specific services you would like to attract.
Of course. So best ways to reach out to me is via either our website or the contact form on the website, or my personal email address. It's dave@provelop.co. Or we have Instagram as well. So just ProVelop or Dave lowercase Deidren. That's my personal one. And in terms of services, it's website design, digital marketing, so advertising, or graphics, just graphic design, flyers, business cards, digital graphics, posters, everything, logos, banners, you name it, we do it.
And that's .co, not .com, because people in the US are so
Exactly.
used to
Yeah.
so that's .co. But again,
Yeah.
we'll put all of that up.
Thank you so much.
I want to try to be respectful of your time. But we hit it almost perfect. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did as well. It was such a pleasure to be on here, and I really appreciate it a lot. I had a blast.
Thank you, Dave. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, Robert. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of the Free Time Mastermind podcast with our guest, Dave Deidren of ProVelop. And as we mentioned, you can find him at provelop.co. There were some principles there that during the interview we discussed that were very reminiscent of Dan Martell from the author who wrote Buy Back Your Time. Very big influence on the formation of the Free Time Mastermind group. And Dave is using some of those principles so that he can spend time away from his business and not worry about problems when he gets back, getting overwhelmed with emails. And he is also mastering running the company remotely. So his work-life balance is good. It's getting better. And I think that's going to be a very important key of his successful formula as he moves forward. So it was fantastic spending time with him. And we'll have another good show for you coming up next with episode 3. Thank you for your time.